Welcome back to Everyone Has a Story. We're so glad that you are here. It's the early 1960s and I'm deployed to Vietnam on TAD, temporary active duty, and what happened that sunny day on a bench on a broad boulevard in Saigon, where I met three elderly Vietnamese ladies and learned of their trust, hope, and ultimate betrayal. Nothing ever happens by accident. But first, how I got there. After a year and a half in college, I decided I would join the military, not because college life was boring or dissatisfying. It was just because I couldn't convince my parents that I didn't need their help with tuition. A college kid who didn't need help with tuition? Well, in my case, no. I was a professional musician, and I was working regularly playing gigs in nightclubs, and I was making much more than I needed for tuition, board, and keep. I was living the high life. But I couldn't convince my mom and dad that I didn't need their hard-earned $500 every semester. Knowing that I couldn't win, I decided I would leave college for a while and I'd join the Marines. My sister was a Marine and had married a decorated Korean War veteran, a Marine. Additionally, my cousin George was a Marine who served in the South Pacific during World War II. Add to the mix, my uncle was an Essex, Scottish, Black Watch, Canadian commando during the European conflict of World War II. He wore kilts into battle. I was surrounded by badass warriors. I'm putting on my best suit. I went to the recruiting station in downtown Dayton, and I boldly walked up to the Marine sergeant at the desk and said, "I want to be a Marine." He looked at me, looked up, then he looked me down, leaned back in his chair and said, "The Marines don't take fat boys." I was gobsmacked. Fat boy. My heart sank. I was devastated. Stumbling towards the door, I heard a soft voice say, "Come here, son." It was a Navy recruiter, a chief bosun mate, just like my dad. And they say, the rest was history. I spent the next 3 months at Great Lakes Naval Training Center, and upon my graduation I deployed to my new duty station, Mine Pack, Mine Ron 11, Mine Div 112. In Navy code that meant I was going to be a Deck Ape in Long Beach, California. I was assigned to a very small boat, the MSB Minesweep Boat 54, as an able-bodied seaman, whose basic job was to paint, chip paint, sand, and repaint anything that didn't move, and salute anything that did. The education that I received as a sailor was quite different from that as a college kid. Talk about growing up fast. I was now assigned to a modified wooden fishing trawler, a boat that was expendable. In combat, we were the front line of the Navy along the shore, finding underwater mines and disposing of them. Life instantly became heartbeat serious and very dangerous. Between operations, the work in port was tedious and boring work, that of maintenance, and I learned quickly that if I volunteered for special assignments, I'd spend less time as a Deck Ape. One of those assignments was to work as a cartographer, plotting our positions and unit sweeping exercises while at sea. This was preparatory, I believe, to my next assignment, a special insertion into Vietnam, to chart the potential sites for yet-to-be-built, the PCFs, the swift boats. Well, I deployed to Vietnam, charting various aspects of the Mekong River Delta and its tributaries. Did I mention it was very exciting and damn dangerous too. It was on one of those assignments that I was given a day off for R&R, rest and relaxation. I took the opportunity to go to Saigon and just to see what that big city was all about. For an Appalachian country boy, it was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. It was a tropical paradise with some new buildings interspersed amongst mostly the ancient culture. I recall the taxi had dropped me off on a broad boulevard where everywhere it was intoxicating. Floral aromas of frangipani and mimosa intermingled with that of the pungent sweet fragrances of lotus and orchids, and they filled my senses. Another more familiar scents were that of sweet peas and morning glories. Those and other exotic aromas blended with the ever-present garlic and soy. It was indescribably oriental. Add to it the incessant ringing of bicycle bells and the motorcycles whizzing by. Simply intoxicating. I had entirely forgot about the constant dangers on the river and the war that surrounded us. Finally I could rest. This moment, this day to enjoy. It was truly R&R. Relaxing time, sitting on the concrete bench, just taking all this in and relaxing. I was approached by 3 elderly Vietnamese ladies, and as they approached, I could see one of them held a muskmelon. I rose and bowed my head in respect to the elders and said namaste. The ladies formed a semicircle in front of me, and the woman with the melon deftly pulled from under her clothing a folding farmer's knife. It was a basic handmade knife, scales of hardwood, a single pivot bolt, and a hand-forged machete-sized blade. It was a functional tool of farmers, not a weapon. Opening the big knife, she cut the melon into 4 pieces and handed them to me, and I gave each of them a piece. With our fingers, we scraped out the seeds and began to eat. It was one of those the sweetest melon actually I'd ever tasted. Fully ripe. It was perfect, a perfect repast on a steamy southeastern Asian day. As we sat on the bench enjoying the melon, what small talk we could attempt was of a little success. They spoke only Vietnamese and a bit of French, and I spoke only English and less than French. The majority of the conversation consisted of hand signs and smiles and the appropriate nods of the head, and soon the melon was gone, and the conversation was going nowhere. We rose and smiled warmly at each other. Then it happened. The lady who had given me the melon stepped close to me, and with tears in her eyes, she gently placed her hand on my chest and said, "You." Then placing her hand on her chest said, "Make me free." I instantly understood the elders of South Vietnam were placing their entire faith in the United States and our powerful military to free them from the relentless communism of North Vietnam's dictator Ho Chi Minh. They were both hopeful and fearful. The fear was well founded. We destroyed their hope and we betrayed them on both accounts. We promised the protection and military aid to defend their enemy to the north, and in the end, we sucked from them the very wind of freedom and of hope. As we abandoned them in our bug out, those incessant war protest mobs, without regard to the unintended consequences, had created one. The inevitable was obvious. Many Vietnamese found ways to escape the onslaught that was to come. I've met some of those honorable refugees throughout my life, and they're all so thankful to have become United States citizens. Those were the lucky few. After our abandonment of the people of Vietnam, the North Vietnamese and the Chinese communists swept through the country in a horrific purge. Between them and their dictator Cambodian ally, Pol Pot, millions of Southeast Asians were murdered. We must never forget and never forgive. America betrayed a trust. There are no words. As a Vietnam veteran, I am ashamed to the core. The lessons we learned is plain. We must never allow ourselves to be swayed again of our core values by those loud voices that demand change with first understanding the unintended consequences of complying with their demands. A post note. I have been humbly honored to have met 2 remarkable refugees and have heard their stories of the horror of their escape. and coming to the United States, and the atrocities that their family and friends who couldn't escape suffered. Stephen Bui, Quan Nguyen, Vietnamese heroes. They became citizens, and their love for our country is an example to we who have been so fortunate as to have been born here, that we must learn the true values of our freedom and of the cost of losing them. Despite our betrayal to the people and the great personal loss of family and their loved ones, that in the purges followed, they still love America. The lesson we must take from them is that we are in great peril when we take for granted our freedoms gifted to us by the Constitution of the United States. In all things, choose wisely. Do you have a story of trust and hope, perhaps even betrayal? If so, please share them with us in the comments down below. We'd love to hear them. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up, and please subscribe for more stories just like these.